My name is Olivier Labrèche. I'm running for the mayor position in Ville Saint-Laurent. What are your goals for the next 4 years? So my goals, I really want this borough to live up to its potential. I grew up in this neighborhood in Ville Saint-Laurent. I now raise my children here. I think it's a great place. It's not too far from downtown. It's on the island. It has a lot of great potential, but I feel like it's a bit in a status quo mode in the latest few years. I would like the neighborhood to be greener, be more fluid, have more transit options for everyone, whether it's children, elderly, or people who go to work. I would like everyone to be able to afford a house or at least a decent living space on the island of Montreal, if that's possible, including in Saint-Laurent. So I really want to fight for the cost of living. That's why I joined Transition Montréal, to have a new voice in Montreal, to try to speak for those people who don't generally have a voice in the public discourse. So fight for affordability, fight for greener and safer spaces, and fight for a more lively neighborhood. What actions will be taken to prevent flooding, as has especially affected Saint-Laurent in recent years? All right, so we all know, we've all had issues with flooding in Saint-Laurent, at least in a lot of the neighborhoods. I got flooded last year. I know a few of my neighbors who did. It's terrible, and it seems just to be getting worse and worse every year. There were retention basins that were planned to be built that were not built on time. So we're going to make sure first that we at least assess what kind of infrastructure we need and build what is possible to be built within the budgets that we have. So first, like, part of the solution is engineering, and the other big part of the solution is using natural absorption methods. So we need to make sure that we reduce the amount of asphalt that is permeable to water, so that we can absorb naturally this water in the soil, in the ground. So for example, we could increase the taxation rate on these large parking lots that don't let the water flow through and that cause like excessive rainwater to flow onto the adjacent streets and in our infrastructure. So that's one thing, to encourage kind of a conversion of these parking lots into more permeable surfaces. The other thing we can do is greener curb extensions on the streets. So I live near an ancient creek bed. So whenever there's a lot of rain, this creek kind of forms again. So it almost becomes like a lake around my area. And this would be a perfect place where we could put some of these curb extensions to absorb the rainwater. And why is nothing happening in those areas? I don't know. There's a lot of extra, I would say, space on the streets that we could use for this. And we have to look at where it would make sense to put them, but definitely we need more of those natural solutions. Third question. There have been many complaints about a lack of parking due to multi-hour and sometimes confusing no parking restrictions in some areas. What will you do about this? And if this will be retained, why? So I think there's a few fundamental issues here. Saint-Laurent is now a territory that is very well served in transit with the metro, but now with the REM. So we have like more mobility options now, more than ever. And it only makes sense that there are like hourly restrictions, for example, around these REM stations or these metro stations. Otherwise, what would happen? Like, a lot of people would come from outside the borough and park there to take the REM. So it would make it even harder for residents on those streets to be able to park their car. So there are places where I do believe it makes sense to have these restrictions. Maybe the signage is confusing. We can look at how we can make the signage clearer for everyone. There are also things like maintenance trucks that need to pass on the street to clean and etc. So definitely we cannot, like we did before, leave the parking totally free for cars to stand there for days and days. I think like the public, and this is maybe an education we have to do on our side, on the side of the politicians and the administration. This is public space. Like, parking is public space, and yes, everyone should be entitled to have a part of that if it's required, but at the same time, it's a shared space and it can be also used for other uses. So what I would intend to push for if I'm elected, we do recognize that many families are dependent on their cars, and we don't want those people to have a hard time finding a parking space, because sometimes people can have night shifts, can have to drive long distance. Not everyone works downtown, so we do understand that. So how can we make sure that for the space that we have available on the street, that is equally shared among the residents of Saint-Laurent? So for example, should some families have 3 cars in the street while other families are looking to park their cars. That does not make sense. So we would maybe have a preferential system where the first car that a family owns, especially if those families don't live in places that have their own private parkings, could have preferential treatment to have access to the streets. And what we really want to avoid is families that have like 2, 3, or more cars standing in the street. Like, we want to give an equal chance to everyone to use those public spaces. So that, I would say, that would summarize our position on parking. All right, so I'm Olivier Labreche. I'm running for the mayoral position in Ville Saint-Laurent. Saint-Laurent is the neighborhood where I grew up. It's a neighborhood that I love, where I came back to raise my own family. I have 3 children. I'm an engineer by training. I worked in telecom, I worked in software, and now I work in AI. So I have experience running complex projects, running technological projects. And I do think that we need kind of more this engineering mindset as we approach city problems. We have to find solutions. There are solutions. We have to find the right ones. And we have to not be afraid to shake things up a little bit. The great thing is that now there's a party running. It's called Transition Montréal, and it's there just to do that, to shake things up, to look at hidden solutions. And so what I intend to do if I am elected is to make this neighborhood greener, safer for our children on our streets, to make sure that everyone has all the mobility options that they want to move around. And the other thing we really want to push for is to make sure that everyone has a place to live, not just a place to live, but an affordable place to live. There's a lot of vacant lands or unexploited buildings around that we can use. If we just look at the sky, like, we can use the vertical space in all of our neighborhoods to build up more housing, and especially more social or public housing, to make sure that everyone has a place to live and an affordable place to live. So if I am elected, I will push for housing issues, because this is the main point of our platform, and this is something I really believe in. I love this neighborhood. I think it has a lot of great potential. I think if you could use a bit more mixed zoning in terms of more proximity businesses for the citizens. But otherwise, I think it is headed in a great direction. It's located in a great place on the island of Montreal. So there's a lot of potential to develop. And I would like the neighborhood to be at its best. A neighborhood for everyone, an affluent neighborhood, and a safe and green neighborhood. Thank you.